Welcome to the 5 for 2 podcast with me, your host Adele, where we say no to careers where you're trading 5 days of misery for 2 days of fun. A place we discuss all things career, confidence, and money moves. I want to motivate, teach, and empower ambitious women to achieve more, earn more, feel more confident, and enjoy the work they do. It's all about believing you can have everything you want in your career and then going and getting it. So if you're ready, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode. How are you all doing? If you've been following along recently on my Instagram, you will know that there's been a lot of topics and conversation around changing industry because I did that series from classroom to corporate talking about teachers going into sort of corporate roles, leaving the teaching industry. And it just got a lot of chatter about different industries, how you switch, or staying in the same industry, but how do you get paid more? Because I was talking about how to increase your salary and stuff like that, even when you switch industries. People were basically like, how do I get more money where I'm already at, Adele, like in the industry that I'm in? So yeah, there was just a lot of chatter and it got me thinking, and that's how this episode has come about. And I want to say something real quick to everyone listening. I need you to stop fighting for your life in the industries that just can't afford it. A lot of these industries are broke. They shouldn't be, but they are. And some of you are fighting for your lives, talking about, I can only get this much, or I've tried to negotiate and I keep coming up against no. Some industries just can't afford it. Let's be real. And that's why I want to do this episode this week. I will never tell you not to negotiate because there is always money, no matter the industry. I will tell you when you are flogging a dead horse, as they say. So let's talk about things like the charity sector, teaching, healthcare. These industries are known to not pay well. Yes, you can negotiate. I was in early years. I negotiated higher than what they said they were willing to pay teachers. When I became a deputy manager and then a nursery manager, I was able to negotiate. Then one day I found out that I was a nursery manager who was very underpaid, even though I'd negotiated. I was training someone for weeks, may I add, and then found out she was on like 15 plus K more than me. When I asked for 5K more, bear in mind, she was on 15K more than me. I asked for 5K more. They said, no, I don't have enough experience. But yeah, I was experienced enough to train her. Anyway, I've just gone off on a little tangent. Let's get back to the matter at hand, Adele. These industries are known not to pay well. Yes, there is money. Yes, you can negotiate, but you can only negotiate to a point. Even things like people working in the NHS. Now, don't get me wrong, depending on the level that you're at, I know some doctors get paid well, but let's be real, some doctors do not get paid well. Your GP don't get paid well. Doctors that specialize in things, plastic surgeons, get paid more. Anesthesiologists get paid a bit more. It depends on your specialism and where you work. Do you work in a private clinic? Do you work for the NHS? All these things matter when you work for the NHS. And even that is a known industry to be underpaid. Listen, people are always striking or protesting because they're saying they're underpaid in that industry. Also, those industries have grade bands, just like teaching. The NHS has grade bands, like whatever it is, grade 8, 9, 10, 11, whatever. When you're in healthcare, there are grade bands. And I always hear people say to me, you can't negotiate outside of a grade band. You can't do it in teaching. You can't do it. Guess what? I've done it. I did it in teaching. I've helped my clients do it. And yes, you can negotiate outside a grade band. I helped one of my clients negotiate 2 grade bands up because they didn't want to lose her. So again, I'm not saying that these industries don't have money and that you can't negotiate. What I'm saying is there is a limit to the level that you can negotiate at. Even when you negotiate outside the salary bands, there is still at some point you're going to get to a ceiling that gets you stuck. When you do want to negotiate in these industries, I just want to remind you that you need to be talking about your experience and your skills and how they deliver outcomes. So not just listing your experience, not just talking about your skills, but talk about how they deliver outcomes, how they deliver results. And if you've listened to my previous episode, talk about the currency that industry cares about. I even shared examples in my last episode of different currencies that industries that don't care about profit necessarily, what they care about and what you should be talking about. So go listen to that if you haven't listened to it. However, what I want to remind you is that instead of fighting, and I mean fighting, to get more money and constantly negotiating and constantly feeling disappointed, you need to consider the industry that you have chosen to be in. Yeah? No matter how good you are at solving problems. And remember, there's always going to be a problem to solve in those industries, teaching, healthcare. Like, there's always going to be some problem to solve. And you hear people saying, be the solution to the problem. You can be the best solution to the problem in those industries and still find yourself underpaid and still find yourself struggling because of the industry. How often do we hear that teachers are underpaid, even though some of those teachers may be teaching the next, I don't know, Bill Gates? They may be teaching the next big thing. The coaches that train athletes, the athletes make hundreds of thousands on deals, endorsements, all that sort of stuff. The coach don't get paid that much. It's the same with teachers. Teachers might be molding the minds of the next Stephen Bartlett, but yet they're going to get paid the same as someone who possibly works in Lidl or Primark. And I'm keeping it 100. I know because some of my friends are still in that industry. Every industry I've worked in, I still have people in those industries because you make friends, you build a network. Teachers are not paid well. You've seen the adverts on TV. If you're in the UK, you've seen those adverts talking about, come, work in teaching, get 40k. Listen, if you've ever worked in a classroom, you've ever worked with children, every personality is different and you've got to mold yourself to be able to teach all those different personalities. You have to grade papers. You have to work in the holidays. People always say, but you get all the school holidays. Guess what? 90% of the time you're working during those holidays because you've got paperwork to do. There is so much paperwork and so much red tape in teaching. 40k, that's an absolute joke. You may as well go and work in a supermarket for the same amount of money and less responsibility, because do you know how much responsibility you've got, safeguarding and all those things when it comes to teaching? Absolutely not. Do yourself a favor. However, do you love it? Because when I started teaching, I did it because I loved it. Whenever you stop loving it, that's the moment to remove yourself. And this is where it comes to when I say people need to stop fighting for their life. Because what I'm saying is, in some industries, there absolutely just isn't more money. In some industries, there absolutely is a ceiling. These industries are not multi-million pound industries. Don't get me wrong, some of these charities, they're making some real money. And I don't know where all the money's going to, because we know that all our donations don't go to the people that we think they're going to. However, when it comes to paying people, how many people do you know in those sectors that are even on six figures, let alone making millions? Let's keep it 100, unless they're the top person. How many people do you know in teaching on six figures? How many people do you know in healthcare on six figures? I'm not talking about doctors. I'm just talking about healthcare workers. How many people do you know on six figures? How many nurses do you know that earn six figures? Let me know. If you do, comment in the comments of this episode. How many of those people do you know that are in seven figures? Right. Because those industries are not known to be multi-million pound industries. Like I said, maybe the people right at the top. But not the regular people. Not the people doing the work. These industries have ceilings. So if you know an industry has a ceiling, you have a choice to make. You have to decide if you want to do it because you love it, or if you want to go and explore something else. You have to consider that there's a limit in this industry. If you work for charities, there's a point where you're going to realize they can't pay me anymore. So instead of working in the charities, could you work for an industry that supports charities but isn't actually the charity sector? Could you support charities in your spare time or voluntarily and get a job somewhere else that actually makes you the money that you want to make? Or do you care more about the cause than you do about the money? Because this is really important. There are always going to be people that care more about the cause, and I take my hat off to them and I thank God for them every day, because if we didn't have people that cared about the cause more than money, there would be no one out here helping anyone. And then you've got people on the other side that they care about the money, but they use the money towards the cause. So they want to go and make a crap load of money for themselves, but they also want to make a crap load of money so that they can help other people, help their families, help build things that support people. Like I know someone, her only dream was to make a lot of money so she could open an orphanage. That was it. That was her only dream. She only wanted to make a crap load of money. So people would look at her and be thinking, oh, she's really ambitious. Look at her making all this money so that she could open an orphanage, so that she could support children that didn't have parents in poorer countries, may I add. So an orphanage in poorer countries. I'm not saying that we don't need those here, but I'm saying in like third world countries, that was her dream. And that's what she moved to do. So there are always two sides to the coin. But do you love the cause so much that you want to stay in the industry? Then what I'm going to need you to do is negotiate as hard as you can. Position yourself as the solution as hard as you can. Talk about the currency and why what you do matters as hard as you can. And then remember there's a ceiling and we're not going to keep complaining about it. Because I promise you, the people in your life are tired. They're tired to hear it. We know teachers are underpaid. You can only tell us so many times before we're like, cool, then go do something else. If you do it because you love it, then keep doing it because you love it. And I'm not saying not to talk about it at all, because we do need to protest. We do need to stand up. We do need to let governments know that these industries are underpaid and they should be paid more. But it's not going to happen overnight. I've been in the workforce 20 plus years. And people have been complaining about how underpaid teaching is for 20 years. So I promise you, 20 years before I even got into the workforce, people was complaining. People have been complaining about these industries and nothing changes. Yeah, they add a few more pence while the rest of the world adds hundreds of pounds to their bottom line. There are estate agents and people working in banking earning way more than the people that take care of your children every day, the people that are shaping the minds of your children. Healthcare workers that are taking care of your health, making sure you're okay, making sure you live, making sure you'll survive, making sure your family members are well, making sure your children are well. There are people in Lidl making more money. There are people in Sainsbury's making more money than them. For my American listeners, they're grocery stores. That's your Walmart or, your Target, those type of places. Those people are earning more than some of our healthcare workers. I don't know how it is in the US. I've heard some similar things. But conversations here in the UK, these organizations, charities, youth work, they just don't pay as well. I still help my clients get the most they can in those industries. I work with teachers. I recently helped someone who's in youth work go from being a manager to being a head of, because being a head of means she's going to get paid more. And she even tried to negotiate more on top of it. She didn't get it this time, but the confidence just to be able to negotiate, because she was like, the fear of negotiating was a big deal with her. So I know that 6 months in, she's going to go for it again and ask for some more money. I work with people in all these industries and I always help them to get the most they can possibly get. But when it gets to the point where there's a line, we start talking about other things. We start saying, could you go into human resources still in the healthcare sector? Could you go into human resources in charitable organizations just to shift your role? Are there any parts of the charity organization where they've got areas that are developing, I don't know, AI or anything like that? Are there other areas you can move into? Can you move into industries that support the causes but don't necessarily have a ceiling when it comes to getting paid? Negotiating is hard enough, guys. It is. I don't care what industry you're in. Negotiating for what you deserve, especially if you're a woman, is already hard enough. We always think we've got to be perfect to get the money we want. We have so much imposter syndrome. Like, there's so much going on. We always think someone else is better than us. So we don't always get paid what we should, let alone in these industries that just don't pay well. So if no one has said it to you, I'm saying it. Some industries have a ceiling. They are known not to pay well. Instead of fighting for your life in those industries, take your skills elsewhere. I know so many teachers, so many healthcare workers that are currently sitting on 6-figure skills. Just that your industry doesn't pay 6 figures for them. So go find the one that does. Anyway, I hope that's helped someone who's in one of those industries, who's stressed and thinking like, I should be getting paid more. You absolutely should. But know that there's a ceiling. Again, negotiate as hard and as high as you can in your industry. And once you've done as much as you can for as many years as you feel like you can, and you're tired and you're fed up and you're ready for more money, and the cause is no longer more important. Like your love for your job is no longer more important than the salary and the numbers in your bank account. That's when it's time to move. Because otherwise you'll end up resenting your job. I was in early years for 10 years. I loved every minute of it. I had my little girl and I started to realize that I was putting so much effort into other people's children, and I was getting home and I didn't have the energy for her. That was the first thing. And then on top of that, not having enough energy for my own child when I was getting home, I then wasn't getting paid well. Oh yeah, the reality started to hit really quick when I became a mum. Had I not become a mum when I did, I feel like I would still be in early years. I would probably own my own nursery by now because that was always the goal. I literally would have still been in that industry because I loved it. It wasn't about the money for me. I loved it. I was making enough money for the life I wanted to live at the time. When you don't have kids, you need a lot less money. When I had my daughter and I thought about the life I wanted to give her, it just wasn't cutting it anymore. And I understood that no matter how much I had negotiated, how much more I negotiated, even when after I had my daughter, it still was going to get to a point where I realized there was a ceiling. I was looking at what managers were making. I was looking at what the top people were making in the private nurseries, in the private schools. And I realized this still isn't where I want to be. I want to be more than that. So I started looking for roles and industries where I could make that happen. And that's what led me to corporate. Because let's be honest, there is more money floating around corporate than there is in any public sector jobs. So yeah, I'm not saying not to negotiate. You're listening to 5 for 2 Careers. We always talk about negotiating. We always talk about getting the most from wherever you are right now. But knowing that sometimes getting more will require you to move, will require you to leave. And sometimes that means leaving and staying in the same industry. And sometimes that means leaving and removing yourself. So to all the people that are doing it for love, please keep doing it. Because we need teachers, we need healthcare workers, we need great doctors, we need all these things. But the ones of you that have already started to hate it, remove yourself. Because guess what? When you start to hate it, you're no longer good at your job. You're no longer caring towards the kids. You're no longer caring towards your patients. You start to get snappy and frustrated because your job is not giving you the outcomes that you want, but you're giving it the outcomes that it wants. Anyway, like I said at the beginning, stop fighting for your life in industries that are simply just broke. I'll speak to you in the next episode. I hope this episode gave you exactly what you needed and motivated you to confidently take steps towards your next career move. If you enjoyed it, screenshot and share it on your socials, tag me on Instagram, and come join my community of amazing women working on leveling up their confidence and career. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.